Yeah.
But like you said, I think it's something that I will sit and have a talk with her, because at no point, it's already happening on the online class thing. Teachers are feeling frustrated. They don't have a handle on why is the video off at times. It may not necessarily be a kid wanting to do that. There might be technological issues, but they get fired. They are told that they'll be marked as absent, and all kinds of pressures are being put. And the
Yeah.
teachers themselves also do not know how to handle it. So they have five monitors in the class, and God knows what is happening. And I'm like, what is this? Already these kids are like really fighting something beyond our ken for us also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't want to veer away because it's a topic very close to my heart, being a parent. But one other thing that I want to ask you is, in one of the things that has happened to me, the reason why the values workshop is here, and I can claim that I do it reasonably well, listen to people and try and understand what they're saying and put it in a context where others can benefit from it, even if
Yeah.
my guest is, I don't mean self obsessed in a bad manner, but because we are so bound by our own story.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's true.
so I try and contextualize it, that I relate to it, and I try and give you an example where it works with me. So, my question to you is, with this kind of life experience that you had at such a young age, and honestly, you've been laughing about it. It tore my heart completely. Not because what I'm seeing now, but
Yeah.
because of a kid who's at a stage that you were,
Yeah. That's true.
and you were unable to understand, and the world was unable to understand you. Uh, yeah, it is all of hugs. What can I say? There's nothing one can say at that point,
Yeah.
because that kid needs to be told. In fact, I had read a very nice line, and I had quoted it to a friend who was feeling very sorry for herself. I said, this story
Mm.
that you're telling yourself, just imagine yourself as 10 years old and say this story to her, that you're not worth it. And yeah, she was crying, and I also felt very strongly about this thing. So,
Yeah.
what I want to ask you is, did you ever use this to hone your empathy? And you did talk a bit about that you went and started talking to people, but did you talk from a position of power, of being vulnerable, which generally does not happen because we see it as two different things? But if
Yeah.
I'm talking to you and I see Ushua has gone through this, and I come and tell you, and you say, don't
Yeah.
worry, I'll tell you what I did, and so on and so forth. So, did you do anything like that? And if you did, how successful were you? Have you tried to consciously help others with, quote unquote, the Ushua problem? They like studies.
Well, I think I think in general, this is something that's true for, and this is, coming back to one of the first things I said. When you think of yourself as a blog, you also see that, there's maybe one, two things that universally apply to everyone around you. And one of them is the need to be altruistic. And I don't know if that's ever going to change. But the truth is that this is something that I see in everybody that I surround myself with in some way or another. They are extremely altruistic. And by doing things for others, by being of service to others, they find happiness and meaning, right? And so that is definitely something that has been like a hallmark indicator of a good leader. And that is something that I've always tried to imbibe. And as part of that, I did teaching, I did mentorship, and I tried that path and it worked out great for me, I think at least now. But at that point, I wasn't really sure. But I think along the way, I came across people with different problems. And I mean, I think just in like my group of like, college friends, I could see like, similar problems to what I had, but they weren't from the exact same lens. So, in some way or the other, most kids, and I don't mean this as a blanket statement, there could definitely be exceptions, but most people that I have seen going through the education system definitely face some sort of issue in this way. It's not that they don't want to learn, it's that the way that they want to learn is not really being catered to. And it's different for everyone. For me, it's like I wanted to learn, but there was a, communication barrier. But one of my friends, for example, she wanted to learn something very specific to what she was interested in, and she just didn't get to do it because of her family, because of everything. And the truth is that she has an aptitude for something entirely different, and everyone around her was saying, do that, do it, you're good at it, so
Hmm.
do it. And automatically internally, if everyone's telling you you should do this, and automatically you're going to be like, but why? I don't want to do it, and rebellion. And so you will try and run away from the path that you think is best for you, but because everyone else is telling you to do it, you don't want to do it automatically. And that's the general truth that a lot of kids actually face, right? And similarly, there are other problems that you kind of come across, things like you're curious about the subject, but the in-depth knowledge of that subject that you want to obtain is not really relevant to the level that you're studying at. That is definitely another struggle that I've seen my friends go through. um it's like, I think I remember this one time my mom was telling me, when she was in her undergraduate class, she was studying about Harappa and Mohenjo-daro as an Indian history and culture student. But the notes that she was making and the level that she was reading was at master's level. And so her teachers would either fail her or give her 100. When she reached her master's, she was doing levels of study at PhD level. So her teachers automatically recognized that she had a brain and gave her a gold medal. You see the disproportion to the reaction to the same type of study at two different levels. And that's an issue that it's not just her, but a lot of people face. And so the problems kind of vary, but the situation is that it's a failure at the end of the day. And learning is constricted by so many different things that it might as well be prison. And to add to that, the online system, I pity teachers and I pity students at the same time. There's no fix without completely burning the system to the ground and restarting. But even that is, it's such a lefty thought that I'm like, no, do not even open that box. It's too big. Don't open
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Very nice, because you've come to a point that is very interesting. We started
yeah,
with talking about how the burden of intellect can actually affect us. I am
yeah,
ending with your present answer, that the heart expands with all kinds of pain, which is something I have come to believe after a lot of life experiences, that pain is a good friend to have, and pleasure is a absolute shortcut to misery, actually, because it just blinds us to what is staring in the face most times. uh,
that's true.
I like to intellectualize things, I would think, but you have so beautifully given it a story and a context, because we started with one kind of answer, and what you're ending with is talking about feelings, emotions. And
Yeah,
my question was more about, did you learn empathy? But you actually shown empathy sheerly by the fact that you universalized the problem rather than sticking to your own version, which
yeah.
effectively means at times, even if you were just talking about your story, you reached out to somebody who might have thought, oh, I have a different context, but she made her peace with it. Maybe somewhere I might find a. My request would be that do this a lot more knowingly. Um,
That's true. Inevitably, this is something I'm really grateful to my college for. Um, I don't think they realize that they do this really well, but being a women's college, this is like the hallmark of strength that they teach you. And empathy is not treated as like, a unique skill. It's the
ah,
reason why the college functions. It's there in every single democratic system across the place, and it's beautiful. It's not seen as, something unique to one leader or one principal or one HOD. No, everyone uniformly understands. No matter what you're talking about, they will first try and understand you. And that kind of universality is something that I think at least is beautiful, and we need more of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, more power to them. In fact, you said it very beautifully again. One aspect that I feel very strongly about is even with the values that one tries and covers with each different guest that comes up.
Yeah.
Moral values are seen as something to be proud of, or it will help you, or uh, or a bargaining chip at times, or all kinds of things. I want to cover this because a lot of people have asked me what am I trying to do with the values workshop. The answer is that I really do not know. I just realized that, oh, I love the way Ushma speaks. So my only
I'm sorry, you cut out.
attempt,
Can you say that last part again?
I am saying I love the way Ushwa speaks. So now, how do I get her on my podcast and make her bare her heart to the world, so that they know what is being talked about? Why are we vibing so well? Or uh, I'm always very keen to get people who are a lot of them have been females. I sometimes realize, and I think I need male members of the human race to come and talk about such
Yeah.
things. But I guess whatever I'm lucky getting, I'm very happy about that,
Yeah.
because these things need to be spoken of. They need
Yeah.
to be normalized. It's really not a big deal to either cry or
Yeah.
talk about vulnerability. So one of the
Yeah.
questions you asked me before the podcast was, what is that I'm trying to do with the vulnerable me? With the series on death, I felt it was far too stark for some people, although the chats have been wonderful as far as I am concerned, because a lot of them are quite positive chats. And they surprise
Yeah.
me every time, because if I was coming to somebody like your age, I spoke to somebody who was 22 years old, and he landed up talking about some stuff that I was like, wow, I thought I knew this guy, but I don't. And since these were anonymous talks, people were opening up better. But I think the word
Yeah.
death is still quite a bit taboo in a lot of circles. So it's
Yeah.
not done as well as I would have liked to, but I am in for the long haul as far as the values workshop is concerned. People will pick it up
Yeah.
and they will. But the vulnerable me is something far more easier to speak about. Uh, Unfortunately, the mental health is becoming a big issue in the coming days, and I see so many people talking about so many things, and they call me up, and once in a while, there's so much. It's very easy for me. I think I was born a little weird inside, so I can really get into your heart very easily. I don't have to think too much. So that's where, if
Yeah.
I'm talking to you, I understand acha intellect, so I know intellect wala problem. um, this I know ye wala problem, this I know this wala
Yeah.
problem, or stage fright I know this problem, because I've gone through all of these at some stage in life, and I've valued these enough to question my self-worth. And
Yeah.
found that whatever, like you, um, certain universal truths, pain hurts. If it hurts you, it hurts me. Certain things are admirable in people. They are worth working for. It's not necessary that I may have them in me, or or they are easy to come by either. Like for a long time, I had lot of anger issues, stuff like that, and I kept looking, and very often, even my kid used to come and talk like, "This is something about you. This is something about you." But I never. I can't say I never, because I must have justified myself when I was in a bad mood. But I often, whenever I was in a good mood, I would come and show my vulnerability and say, this is what I was feeling about, and maybe I was wrong. I don't think I cannot claim that I said sorry very often. It took a long time for me. Now it seems a little more easier.
Mm.
I think it's very difficult, because you are also confused about where you stand, and you want to, I think that fear makes you justify yourself, and you want to, and that is where then I relate to something like what happened to you in school, that you think you're right, but then again, everybody thinks you're maybe not you. Like, what is the problem? So
Yeah.
thank you for this amazing conversation. You really covered a lot of ground, and I did not expect that we would talk and see a version of you. Thank you so much, and all the very best. And
I
maybe,
have uh
uh,
thank you. I have one concluding thought that it kind of stuck with me through everything that you were saying.
please,
Um it's I mean I know this is not something that we can cover today, but there's definitely and this is something that, okay, let me set context, that'll be easier.
yeah,
So a couple years ago, I was watching this TV show called Jane the Virgin. It's a comedy soap opera collab version that is set in like a Latin American context. And one of the actors is this guy, Justin Baldoni, who plays like your stereotypical hunk, like rich guy,
Mm.
hot guy, typical. Okay. And at the end of the show, he realized that on his social media, he had mostly women following him. And they loved his content where he was being vulnerable and sensitive and showing his emotional side. Unfortunately, the men were just not responding to that at all. And he has an entire TED talk about it. And then he goes on to even have an entire YouTube series that is one of my favorites, actually. It's called Man Enough. And the entire conversation is, are you man enough to talk about your feelings? And it's one of the best things. I highly recommend you watch it. And I highly recommend anybody that's watching this to watch it because it's really good, actually. But yeah.
And this is funny that you would mention this. One of my friends that I'm very, very, very fond of, and who I
Yeah.
look up to, a very good Christian. I used to tell her that if I ever have to sin, I will tell you, and then I'll tell God that you okayed it. Because that kind of covers. If you are okay with it, then God cannot say that why did you bother about this? And she used to laugh about it. Um, she and I were talking once, and she said, "You have the heart of a woman." I said, "Well,
Wow.
this compliment is not going to get bettered most of the time." But I think over a period, I found, I think, yes, on a general level, it might be true. Women are far more expressive with these things. But the kind of men that I associate with and the kind of friends that I have very close to me are genuinely far more open-minded and open-hearted about all issues in the world. I think it's not a
Yeah.
sex thing. In fact, my grouse with women is that they become far too manly for me. They're trying to, you are actually coming one notch down. What was your problem? You never compared. But I
It's
guess,
not about notches.
yeah,
It's
and it's
about
also
equality.
subjugation. Yeah, it's really been we've had a bad run, and they are not to blame in that sense. I understand that, but
Yeah.
I think because if this is celebrated, like a Paulo Coelho, for example, if you ever read him, it gets
Yeah.
predictable after a bit, but stuff like Valkyries and things like those, I thought yes, or the Witch of Portobello, again, things like those were genuinely beautiful ways that women could express themselves and stand up for what they are. It need not be this way
Yeah.
or that. But that is
Yeah.
like Pandora's box. We can talk for next 20 hours on that and never end the topic. So we shall
Next time.
go back to our blobbing bit. If all blobs are
Blobs.
like you,
Yeah.
I think the world is going to be a better place, certainly. I again wish you all the very best with all your good and bad days. You're doing fantastically well with your bad days. So I wish they always lead to good insights about yourself.
We'll
Yes,
see.
yes, you got
Maybe
me.
I'll regress. We'll see.
Thank you very
But
much.
thank you for having me. This was fun. Yeah.